So many Amazon sellers don't treat their Amazon businesses like a real business. So we brought on somebody today who's an expert in this, and she's helped countless number of businesses really scale up. And there's going to be great points that you're going to be able to glean from this as well. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think.
What was your gross sales yesterday, last week, last year? More importantly, what are your profits after all your cost of selling on Amazon? Did you pay any storage charges to Amazon? How much did you spend on PPC? Find out these key metrics and more by using the Helium 10 tool, Profits. For more information, go to h10.me/profits.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Serious Sellers Podcast by Helium 10. I'm your host, Bradley Sutton, and this is the show that's a completely BS-free, unscripted, and unrehearsed organic conversation about serious strategies for serious sellers of any level in the e-commerce world. And I'm still here recording in Spain, Madrid, Spain. I'm here at the Avasc office, and we are here with somebody who has not been on the podcast in like 2, maybe even 3 years. Over 3 years. Christi in the house. How's it going?
Hi, doing well. How are you?
I'm doing just ducky. I recorded Leo earlier today, but he did his presentation already. So I was able to ask him some stuff on it, but I don't know what you're going to talk about yet. So I'll ask you that in a little bit. But since it's been so long since you've been on the podcast, what in the world have you been up to?
Well, I think the last time I was on, I was running an Amazon brand management agency. And so that was the first one that I was running at the time. And after that, we merged/sold to a larger agency where I was the head of operations as well. We had about 100 clients, about 90-ish employees. So really kind of scaled up, which turns out that's kind of my forte. And I was there for a little while, and then I left, and apparently I just can't get enough of the agency world. So for the last about 2.5 years, I've been running what's my new agency, the COO Integrator. And so I am a fractional chief operating officer. So it's that second in command. It's the one that says, okay, here's the big vision of what the visionary wants, the CEO wants. And okay, now how do we turn that into tactical strategies that we can implement and, get everybody rowing in the same direction for. So I do that.
Well, hold on. So you're the CEO of this company, or you're like a CEO of many companies?
I'm the CEO of my company, my agency, but I play the role of the COO, which actually quite works for me because I'm a good blend of both the visionary and also the integrator. I like taking the really big concepts. That's a lot of fun for me, but I need to distill it down and make it very practical, set some goals around it. And I use a lot of my business strategies to make sure everything gets executed. So it's both.
Went out to dinner last night, and I remember you Vincenzo was there, and you found out he worked at a PPC agency, and you're like, oh man, a couple of years ago, I looked into like 25 PPC agencies, was it?
It was a brand management agency. So I was trying to do a competitive analysis. I wanted to understand. So one of the things that I think a lot of companies, especially when they're getting started or they're so kind of single focused, you don't realize that they don't understand their unique value proposition. And so what makes you different? Why, if I were looking at 2 different agencies, why would I choose yours over someone else? And most folks, unfortunately, we have great customer support, or we're so good with our clients, and it's very generic, and they all kind of say the same thing. And so I really wanted to understand, okay, well, who are my competitors in the space? And I find it to be a very non-competitive space in the sense that we're all very friendly. It's very open. What I love about the e-commerce space is that it has kind of that good feel to it as an industry personality. But theoretically, these are my competitors, and I wanted to see, well, okay, what are they offering? What do they charge? What are their contract terms? So I called dozens of them, and I just said, hey, this is what I'm doing. What's unique about you? I just want to know these different things. So it was a competitive analysis. It was just sort of a landscape.
And, obviously you don't have to mention any names, but what were just some things that stuck out to you about, I don't know, maybe price point or something that you saw was a hole in the industry, or something that everybody had, or what were some of your big takeaways, I guess I'm asking?
That most companies actually did have something that was quite unique. I would say more than half the companies, they would tell me something and I'm like, oh, I haven't heard that before. That's really unique. Like that is, do you know that is unique to you? So in a way, I was kind of helping them with their marketing, like go ahead and highlight that. So some folks, they would specialize in major brands, like big Fortune 100 company kind of brands. That's not typically what an Amazon brand management agency. But if you think about it, most of those companies are kind of dinosaurs. So they don't know how to kind of pivot and get online. So that was a unique one. A lot of companies had different contract terms, but most of them were a flat fee plus once you hit a certain point, then we take a percentage. Unique ones were maybe it was a contract, they just go month to month. And other ones, they said, we just want 2 years because we're going to invest with you. So really, I think knowing what those are, what your differentiators are and what's important to you can help you decide what type of clients, your ideal client, who you want to go after. Some clients are just like, I just want to test this out. Is this going to be good? So they would probably want to go with an agency that has a lower fee and month-to-month contracts. But other ones who want to deep dive, they know they're going to invest in this. They know where they want to go, build that partnership. So it helps you kind of weed out the clients that you do want and get rid of the ones that you don't. So I don't know what really stood out. There was a lot.
Okay, now let's just flip the script a little bit. I'm an Amazon seller. I'm new, or I'm big. I'm a 7-figure seller, 8-figure seller. Who is the persona, or what type of person should be looking for a brand management agency, as opposed to, you know what, you probably should just, try and handle things on your own at your stage?
That's a loaded question. I would say that it actually depends on your personality type. So there are people who want to understand, there's a level of control that says, I want to bring all of this in-house. I want to bring in an expert who is a good PPC expert, someone who does graphic design. I want it to be so customized because it's my business. If that is your personality type, you probably want to build in-house. But if it's not, and you really just want kind of the simple life, you can find a partnering with an agency that has all of that already in-house. I would go that route, but it really depends on how you want to run your business in general. So it's more of a personal decision on your lifestyle with that. There is an influx point, especially because, like I said, a lot of agencies will have sort of a flat fee to start with for the first 90 days or whatever. And they get to a point and they say, okay, we expect to build traction at this point. So from that, once we hit this threshold, we want to flip and we want to take a percentage of sales. Well, that's fantastic, especially if they're doing a really good job. But if you go from doing, 50,000 in sales, then 100,000 in sales, and then 500,000 in sales, and suddenly you're doing millions in sales, that, taking 5% or whatever that is, at some point you're going to be paying the agency hundreds of thousands of dollars, that it makes more sense then to just bring it in-house. So there is a scaling point that I would say, unless you're super comfortable and you just love working with them and you don't care to give away that percentage as long as you don't have to think about it, because clearly they've done a good job, then at some point you would probably want to bring it in-house.
Okay. All right. Now, I think I remember looking at the title of your talk today, wasn't one thing about helping people scale? All right. So, we have listeners of this podcast from newer sellers all the way to maybe 7-8-figure sellers. What are some, I know a lot of the stuff you talk about is targeted, depending on their exact persona, but maybe there's some general things that you could, some tips that you can give out about, because I think everybody wants to scale, unless they're just trying to do this in their hobby. Hey, I'm very happy at my level the rest of my life. My day job is this. Yeah. That's probably 3% of people. I think 97% want to scale. So what are some tips you can give?
It's very customized because it depends on where your maturity of your company is. And so I use the word maturity in the evolution of your business, because most people say, well, I'm $1 million company, or I'm a $5 million company, or I'm a $40 million company. That really doesn't matter, because I've had clients that are 40 million, I've had clients that are 2 million, and they're at the same stage. They experience the same influx of issues. So I like to identify them. So Tony Robbins has a really good he has a really good model that's called the evolutionary 10 stages of your business. And it starts literally from a child. It's like birth, you have infancy, you have toddler, teenager, young adult, and then you're in your prime. And then eventually, at some point, things always kind of deteriorate and you kind of go down that path. So I like for people to be able to identify where they are. That helps them understand what their bottlenecks are. So one tip would be figure out, where do you stand? Where is your evolution of your company? And what is it going to take for you to go from a teenager to a young adult, or a young adult to get to you when you're in your prime? So understanding that about yourself. Another thing that I would say is most companies, you're just very focused. Most people don't understand business. If you didn't get an MBA, you don't understand all the facets of business, right? They think, well, I've got a product and I've got or a service. This is what I'm doing. Understand that if you want to scale, you kind of need to do it. The best way to do it is is as balanced as possible. And so another exercise that I do is based off of EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. They have a model. So this is that's a business blueprint. Every company should be working from a business blueprint. And so if you can do that, there's several questions that kind of prompt you. Well, how well are you in each of these categories of your business? So you can say, okay, well, how is my data measurables? Like, do I know what I'm measuring? Do I know what my PPC statistics are? Do I know what my P&L looks like? Do I know what my churn rate is? Do I know? There's lots of things to know. So understanding that category, understanding your people. Do I have the right people? Have I hired, are they doing the best that they can? So there's lots of different ways that you can measure the health of your business. You can take it, it's a 20-point questionnaire. You can go to EOS. I think it's called, you can download it for free. In 5 minutes, you can kind of figure out sort of like a general health of your business. That will also tell you, okay, here are the areas that I'm unbalanced. These are my strengths and these are my weaknesses. But as you want to scale as balanced as possible. Also understanding different personality types. You start off as the visionary of your company, and different visionaries, and I kind of have several different buckets that I would put them in, but there's different visionaries create different problems, create different solutions and problems in their companies. So you get the ones that are, they're just very, gregarious, like very like outgoing and big and let's try all the things, and they don't have a big sense of risk. They don't have a correct sense of risk. They go above and beyond, and that's really fun. They're usually very grateful. They're a lot of fun to work with, but there's very little. The opposite side of that is they don't come with a lot of accountability. They just trust you. Yeah, go do the thing. I like you. You seem smart. Let's go. And they don't. They're the opposite of micromanagers, but then they kind of let things go. And so if you're that type of leader, understand what your strengths are, and also understand what your weaknesses are, right? Because that can create a lot of uncertainty in your employees, and a lot of employees love you, but they just feel like they're constantly concerned about what's happening with their job. So I could go down a whole rabbit hole on different personality types, but those are the things: is understand who you are, what you bring to the company, and kind of the health of the business overall. I mean, there's tons of tools out there that in 5 minutes, I love doing workshops because I want people to learn about themselves, where they stand relative to who they are, what they bring to the table, and what they are going to need to balance them, because everybody has strengths and weaknesses.
Now I'm looking here. I'm guessing this is part of like your workshops that you're going to be doing, or yes. Is this a handout that people are going to have?
Handout, yes.
Okay.
Very tactical, hands-on.
Maybe you can describe some of this so that people can maybe do this at home, even without you, at least get started on this framework here.
Sure. Well, I kind of did mention a little bit. So I would look up Tony Robbins. So Business Mastery, he has the 10 life cycle stages of the evolution of your business. So if you can look that up, he kind of gives a definition, as I said earlier. So you have birth, you have infancy, you have the toddler, you have the teenager, you have the young adult. What are those? What are the pros and cons of each one of those? So go look that up. And if you could do that, read there, help you self-identify. Once you identify, let's say you figure out that you're in a teenage stage. That's a very exciting stage. It's also one of the most dangerous stages. And a lot of people get stuck there. A lot of visionaries get stuck there. And so I won't have time to go into detail about it. But if you are able to identify, that kind of sounds like where I am, go ahead and look at what the next stage is after that. What is it going to take for me? So the teenager stage, I think it's usually fun and reckless, right? Teenagers, I think of them as driving 100 miles an hour down the highway, but they've got their sports car because cash flow at that point is less of an issue. But they say yes to everything and they don't know how to say no. Everything looks like an opportunity. So they pull resources from everywhere. It's very unfocused. So I think about that teenager driving 100 miles an hour down the highway. If they take one wrong turn, they could seriously wound the business. They don't really recognize that. There's a sense of overconfidence with that. So if you look that some of those are usually the signature problems that you have as a teenager, then look and see, okay, well, what is it going to take to get to be a young adult? And I kind of like quote that as a young adult would be a rebirth. You grow up, right? You like, okay, we had to have some responsibility. We're going to bring in some professional staff at this point. So I talk about each one of those stages, but go ahead and just look that up. I think it's brilliant. It's a really good way. Another thing that I have here, as I said, sort of this grading, I turn it into sort of a wheel exercise so you can kind of self-grade. And it's the EOS, I think it's organizational checkup. Go there. It's 20 questions. It's Likert scale, 1 through 10. Grade yourself. You can share that with all the other people in your company so that you get a collective grading for everyone. And it comes back and it says, okay, well, your score is a 57 out of 100. Okay, well, what areas do we need to work on? So it will quickly highlight for you some of those pieces. But core values exercise, creating your one page, your business blueprint. Who are we? Where are we going? Why are we doing what we do? What makes us unique? What's our ideal client? Really building on a business blueprint. Because when you look at going back to the stages, if you look at when you're in your prime, this is like Apple. I mean, you just know that they come out with excellence at all times, right? And you could be in your prime for decades. You can be in your prime for a long time. When you understand what that looks like, you want to strive to get to those levels of like, what's the pros of each one of those. So self-education.
Taking it back to, I think, something that is at the top of mind of a lot of Amazon sellers nowadays. You started selling on Amazon in kind of like the glory days where you could just like fall into making tons of money by accident, not even knowing anything you're doing, right? Nowadays, I'm sure you talked about this with Amazon sellers. I think I see so much more fear and anxiety over all the new fees that Amazon has, rising PPC costs, rising logistics, this and that. And now many people are stressing about not only just how to scale, but just how to stay afloat. And so some of your successful people you talk to, what are their characteristics or what are they doing because it's still very viable to make money on Amazon. So what are the successful people? How are they navigating all of these, fees and increased costs?
Well, first of all, the successful ones are treating it like a holistic business. It's not just, I'm going to throw up a product, make some money, and then maybe I figure out a little bit of PPC with that, right? There is an evolution to actually truly building something like a business. But, and so I say that in tandem, when I think of truly building a business, you have to look at all aspects. So it's not just the single focus of what are my resources within the Amazon or e-commerce space. So for example, when we talk about fees, one of my clients, has nothing to do with this, but it overlaps. He gets the best rates on UPS and FedEx that you can imagine. Okay, well, maybe we can't, if you're doing FBA, then you can't necessarily use those, right? Because you're not going to get better fees. But if you are diversifying, and if you want to do FBM, or if you want to do Shopify and you want to go to other places, those fees, you can offset them by getting unbelievable discounts for those, and you can kind of offset the cost of what Amazon is rising by decreasing the costs of other platforms in your Shopify store, let's say. So that requires that you step out. So you would not know that this type of service exists because it's not really talked about here, because most people go FBA if they're going to be selling on Amazon. But being resourceful and look at the problem plainly. Okay, Amazon fees are going up. If you look at your balance sheet, if you look at your P&L and you say, these are all the costs that are associated with my business, what are ways that I can offset each one of these? Like I look at it, I like put my little MacGyver hat on and I'm like, okay, what else can I do? What else can I bring to the table? What else is working in completely different industries? What are they doing that I can kind of take and then bring that over into my space? So I say two things. They treat it like a business, like it's holistic. I'm not just selling a product. They know that they're building a brand. They know that they're trying to, and if they know in 2 years, they've got their vision, 2 or 3 years, we want to sell for X amount. Okay, well, you start working with folks that will help you kind of get you set up for a sale. We'll do that 1.5 years in advance. There's some brilliant tactics for how you can set for decisions you need to make today that 18 months from now will greatly pay off so that you can find the right buyer. So these are all different ways that are it's not just looking at selling a company or your business. It's what are all the resources that you're going to need in the future. So thinking in advance, treating it like a business, and looking for resources outside of space.
I think what you said is important, because there's a lot of Amazon sellers, I would say, that this is probably the first business they've run. Maybe they came from the corporate world, or they came from working a 9 to 5. And so they don't have that experience. And there's a tendency, because it's such a different beast on one hand, where it's like, oh no, it's not a real business. But then all of a sudden they're like, wait, this is a business doing 7 figures a year. In your experience, when you first talk to people like that, what are they doing wrong as far as not treating it like a business? Like, what's the most common things that you're like, okay, we got to get this fixed right away?
Okay, I'm going to answer this in sort of an evolutionary piece. So most people, when they start a business, it's just you in your basement or wherever, and you're selling either your product or service, but probably your product, right? If you're not going to do an agency style. And you figure that out. So you go through that and it's just you're trying to do everything. And then you kind of get that going, and then maybe you hire a customer service person, or maybe you hire someone to help you out with the day-to-day operations. Okay, that's very common. Once you get that flowing, then what is the next evolutionary piece is, well, okay, I've done this and I've got a good product now. Now let's bump up the sales. Let's do the marketing. Let's get in some PPC. How else can I get a lot more sales? So then you switch your focus next to the department. I'm going to put that in air quotes, the department of marketing and sales. And you try to figure out, let's pour some gas on this. We've got this going. Okay. So now you've got your product and service. Then you have your marketing and sales. Okay. So finally, then we've got that flowing and we've got that going. We know what we're doing there. Oh crap. I'm making a lot of money now. What's my P&L look like? What's my balance sheet look like? What does my profit look like? What is margins? What is this about? So then you start taking your focus. The next evolution is you typically take your focus to finance and making sure that you've got the right legal entities and you've got the taxes going for you, and you focus all on that. Once you get all that settled, and then you think, okay, do I have the right people? Okay, am I like doing the best that I can? And do I have a high turnover? So then it gets to HR. So my answer is actually HR. People ignore HR because in the evolution, it's we call it like crisis by management by crisis. Most every one of those stages, you're saying, what's the biggest crisis that I need to focus on? So HR doesn't feel like it's crisis, but it actually is like the underpinning of everything. So most people ignore HR. So one of the very first things that I do when I come in is I say, what do our people? What does it look like? Do we have the right staff? Do you trust your people? Because a lot of times they'll hire someone, but they don't trust them. And so then they micromanage them and they never let them flourish. And then it keeps growing and growing and growing. And then you have this owner who now has like 15 employees. They've technically become successful, but they've got golden handcuffs because they can't leave because they haven't figured out how to actually delegate and trust. That is one example. So when I come in, the first thing I do is I say, what does HR look like? Because usually, and by the way, the whole time, whether you're doing you're doing your product surface, your operations, your marketing, sales, your finance, you're still hiring people along the way, but that always tends to fall on the visionary, which most people didn't go to HR school. They don't know how to interview. They don't know how to hire the right people. They don't know how to manage and make sure that they're setting those expectations. So I tend to think of that as I will come in first. I'll look at HR because I know that that's one of the number one things that's going to make or break a company. But it feels like it's the underpinning. It doesn't feel like it because it's not so much a crisis loud thing usually, but that's the underpinning. And it always falls on the visionary, and that's not necessarily going to be their forte. So if I can teach them how to do that, and we can kind of clean house and get the right people in the right place and get the systems and all of that, that's typically what I see.
All right, now, you and I were just talking in the elevator about, how Helium 10 is a remote company. I would say nowadays, most Amazon businesses, as they scale and become a real businesses, it's almost all remote. Either they're hiring people within the United States remotely, or, in most cases, hiring people from other countries, be it Philippines, Pakistan, et cetera. What are some things that Amazon, business owners can do to, in a remote lifestyle where they can just make sure, hey, everybody's on task? Like Helium 10, we started as an in-office company, so it's easy for us to know, like, oh, wait, this person is slipping when we run remote, or like we know what. But Amazon sellers from day one, they're kind of a remote company. So how do they structure it to make sure that it's still operating as a well-oiled machine? Maybe they've never even met some of their employees in person.
Sure. I mean, I think it's a really good question. I think there's a lot of challenges that people have because it's not a natural state. If you think about humans and how we've all interacted with each other coming from villages and living in cities. This is a very new thing. COVID did not help, but it really exacerbated the fact that so I would say the same way that you would handle a social situation if you moved away from your friends and family. It takes effort. You actually have to put in conscious effort to reach out and create a relationship with. You can't, like if you moved away and you have all of your best friends and your family that lives back in your hometown, you have to actually put in the energy and effort to ask them how they're doing, see what they're up to, have constructive conversations. When you're in person, you just don't really think about it. You kind of take it for granted. You're like, oh, I'll just go bump into you at the water cooler. Hey, just pop in my office, that kind of thing. It's so much, it happens kind of effortlessly. It takes effort to actually maintain relationships, and you kind of have to rebuild your social skills. So I would say that from a culture perspective is that you need to figure out what that looks like. So I have a lot of clients where we'll implement, we do like happy hour Fridays where everybody, at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, we're like, hey, let's all get on here. We'll share, we'll do trivia, they'll do things. So there's lots of things you can do from a culture perspective. But in terms of just operations of a business, cadence of meetings. And I say that carefully because I think a lot of people roll their eyes. I have a lot of meetings. A lot of people roll their eyes at me because they hate meetings. Most people hate meetings because they're not productive meetings. Like I said, I'm a hands-on tactical person. I don't want homework after a meeting. Don't make me do anything. As soon as we're over the phone, I'm done. I did my job. So the moment that I get on meetings, I know what we're working at. I know what we're trying to solve. And if we don't know the answer, I'm in the middle. I'm building a matrix. I'm building, we're typing it out. We're having a constructive conversation. I'm leading it. I'm constantly monitoring people to say, okay, what are we trying to solve? You have this question. How can you get our audience to solve? What do you need to move forward? So you just have to be more cognizant about having constructive meetings. So it's a lot more communication in that sense, but that more communication does not need to be waste of time. I think a lot of people have that sort of this equals that. Not true at all. Just have productive. So learn how to have, so if I had to summarize, 1, decide how you want the culture of the company to be and put in effort to make sure that happens, that you are building relationships again, whether that's a happy hour, you guys do like a weekly like shout outs or something like that. And then the second one is learn how to have productive meetings. learn how to have constructive meetings where you actually get work done during the meeting while everyone's together. They can put in their input if that is needed. Learn how to have constructive meetings so that you don't have to have a lot of busy work on the other side. And then you guys are learning and building and growing together, which just creates more camaraderie.
Awesome. All right. Any last words of wisdom, like a message you want to get out to Amazon sellers around the world here? What can you help them with? Like I sometimes call this like a 60-second strategy, but I'm not going to tie you down to a certain time, but just anything you want to, close this out with.
Oh, goodness. I mean, I think I've harped on the fact that treat it like it's a business, truly. If you're not working on a business blueprint, EOS is a good one. It's a limited, it's very, very good, but it's limited. You have System and Soul. There's lots of different ones. Find a business blueprint to work from, because most people don't understand strategic frameworks, and it's not anybody's fault. If you didn't go get an MBA, if you didn't know this, but you have the entrepreneurial spirit, you do have to educate yourself on how to run a business. So treat it like it's a business, that there are all different components and aspects to it. And I think that you will find that scaling and growing and educating, you will be more balanced and less stressed, and you'll have less of those true deep pitfalls that I see a lot of people having. So,
all right, one more thing. Yeah. At dinner last night, I kind of got a little bit of this, but Boyan was telling me you went to Costa Rica and you didn't eat food for like 2 weeks or something. So tell me a little bit about what because, you never, there's some people out there who are, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but like are the whole very spiritual and touchy-feely and yoga every morning and let me go find my inner priestess or, whatever. You never struck me as that kind of person. But so I'm wondering what prompted you to do this retreat? What did it involve and what did you get out of it?
So funny that you said that. And I don't think that I used to be, but I'm happy to openly admit I'm actually quite a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person, but I am a very spiritual person. And so what prompted it? Two things. I could say I felt a little called to do it. But secondly, we grow by the most through our struggles. And I've read this in a lot of different places, and people talk about, I wanted to go do something that was challenging. I wanted to do something that pushes you, because in this particular retreat, I was in Costa Rica, definitely out with the bugs every night. I had to look for spiders and scorpions and snakes in my bed, on top of not eating at all. You had one job, and that was to drink as much water as humanly possible. So
Did you ever have those things in your bed?
Not in my bed, but I definitely had an altercation with a very large spider, and that was
Crossing Costa Rica off my bucket list.
But it's so beautiful there. But you're there, and I meditate a lot. I mean, so I thought I'm just going to go there. I'm going to meditate for a couple of hours every day. I'll take some naps. It'll be great. No, you had one job to do, and that was to drink as much water as possible. So I was drinking up to 1.75 gallons a day. But the thing is, when you're not eating, you're not replenishing the electrolytes. So you have to drink 16. You can't drink any more than 16 ounces in 1 hour so that you don't flush it. So it's little sips. So from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, so from 7 a.m. to about 10:30 at night, all you have to do is drink. And you're not supposed to, there's no internet, there's no Wi-Fi, you can have your phone, but there's nothing that you can't download anything. No one talks, you walk around like a grandma. So it's almost like you get the sense of, and a lot of people are kind of physically purging. Most people that went there, I was very different. Most people who went there had very much, had cancer, had different things. The cleansing of your body it's fantastic. I recommend anybody research what fasting, like water fasting, can do. It's one of the best things I think you can do for your body. But so there was a combination of wanting to kind of do a good cleanse, but it challenges you mentally, emotionally, and physically to be uncomfortable, to be in a space you don't have most people use food for comfort or to repress. I mean, we all do it, right? Or to repress some feeling or to kind of just enhance. I mean, we use food almost like it truly is kind of like a drug. Well, you don't have that to rely on. So then you're sitting there by yourself, no one really to talk to, nothing to entertain you in traditional ways. You're stuck with your thoughts, and you go through a lot through that. So I like to do pretty strong challenges. And so that was one of my big challenges for this year. Can I do it? And I would probably not ever do it again. I mean, unless I got very, very sick, and I thought if I did, I thought that would be the best thing that I could do. But it's just to challenge myself, to grow, to do something different.
All right, cool. All right, man. We'll see. I've tried a lot of different things. Maybe I can try that, just minus the scorpions and snakes and spiders.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how can people find your company, or are you out there on the interwebs these days?
I am, in fact, on the interwebs. I think that we have to be, don't we? So I am right now. So my main is I'm the COO integrator. That is my agency. So that's just COO for Chief Operating Officer. the COO Integrator. That is my website. And right now, I mean, the truth is I'm extremely fortunate that I do have a backlog of clients. And funny enough, I don't really scale my company. Of all the things who don't.
She helps people scale, but she doesn't scale.
You know, when you've had so many companies and you're responsible for hundreds, dozens, if not 100+ people, there comes a point in your life where you're like, I think I'm just good with keeping things simple. But you kind of have to go through that to appreciate this. It's kind of like water fasting. You have to go without food before you can appreciate the food there. But yeah, so I'd love to. I usually do free analyses with people. Thank you. Just to kind of help them, and I can point them in the right direction. So I'm always just kind of happy to help guide people. And anymore now, I spend some time on boards of companies and I do other investments and things. So I love the game of business. I'm always happy to talk about it. So please reach out to me, Christi at the CO Integrator, and I'm happy to chat.
Awesome. Well, hope to see you sooner than later. And I don't have to travel around the world just to be able to see you like here in Spain.
Yeah, going to Europe, right?
All right. We'll see you guys in the next episode.